You're listening to Guts and Grind with Siju and Sajin, making the real estate journey accessible to anyone.
All right, we're back and rejoining with Sajin for Guts and Grind. We're talking today about home inspections. So, when you buy a house, should you get it inspected? And what are the downsides? What are the upsides? Is there any side to home inspection? But I am rejoined by my buddy Sajin Abraham. I am Siju Koshi. And Saj, how was the Norford project, brother?
It was a journey. I hope those that have watched gain something from it. Like it's all a learning experience. Like Sidra and I both have been through that process before. This is probably a bigger scale than I've ever done in the past. But at the end of the day, it's just, hey, whatever's broken, fix it, make it look a lot better, and then put it on the market, right? So basically that's where we're at. Like, we fixed it up. We got a property that was undervalued and pretty beat up. We put some money into it and fixed it up, and now we're doing the final touches and we're about to put on the market. I'm super excited to get that done because we have stabilized properties and then there's this one that's still floating, right? So I want to get this one stabilized and then we'll be just good to go, and then we could mentally move on to the next project. So, but overall, man, I'm happy with it. Like even dealing with the hard money lender and all that stuff, like it was a big learning experience, which I think of everything, like that's the best thing, to be able to walk away and say, I've done this and now I have a general idea of how this should work.
Yeah, yeah, and everything again, even if there's mistakes in there, you're learning from it. But how big of a weight is that off your shoulder? Like, I mean, I feel like when I did my last project was kind of a rehab, probably not as big as yours, but man, when I was done with it, I was like, let's get
Yeah.
rented out. I'm like, I'm tired, like just making just the everyday ins and outs of it, things like that. Like running to the stores and dealing with the contractors.
No, for sure, for sure. So like I agree with that because although I had a G working with us and we're working on that together, I still wanted to be involved, actually getting some materials and like bringing it to the property and stuff, and just to help out and help speed up the process. And also, there's certain things that are like, hey, this is what I want, and so I want to make sure that I'm bringing it to you, explain how I want it laid out, all that kind of stuff, right? And so you don't realize how much time that really takes, especially when the property's not literally in your backyard. Like
Yeah.
this property is about 30 minutes away, 25 minutes away, which is not horrible. But when you're in the middle of work and then you're like, oh, I got to go pick up the flooring and then I got to bring the flooring or the tile or something like that, like it's kind of a long story short. Yes, it's a huge weight to know that
Yeah.
all that's, but that's a part of the game, right? Like, I mean, I say it's all done, but I'm going to be looking for the next property very soon too, right? So it should be a never ending thing until you get to your goal. So,
Yes,
but
sir.
it's great. It's great to know that at least Norford is put away and, we can get it rented out now.
Good, good, good. Yeah, with that said, man, let's move to today's topic and dive in on home inspections. I think it's one of the things that a lot of people may or may not know about, but I think it's a part of the due diligence phase of buying a rental home. And again, you don't have to do it, but I highly recommend it. And I think we should talk about it from a perspective of just knowing what you're getting into, right? Especially with some kind of investment property, you don't know who's been in it before. And with that said, Saj, I mean, how would you use home inspection whenever you're about to buy a house, or have you used it?
So I've used it, and there's also a time that I didn't use it, and I'll kind of map that out. But like you said, I would highly recommend it, especially if you're new to this whole thing. Like you want as many people on your team on your side to be your advocate, right? And so there's no way that you could walk into a thing and say, "Oh, I know everything about everything." And so these are like an inspector. A home inspection is basically a second set of eyes to comb through things and say, "Hey, this is broken," or "This is not up to code," and kind of see the things that you wouldn't see as an investor, right? If you're walking into this game as an investor, you shouldn't assume that you're going to know everything, right? Like you're not a professional plumber, you're not an electrician, you're not a roofer, you're not any of these things, and you shouldn't put that weight on yourself either. You should focus on investing, and so make sure the numbers are right, make sure it's a good property, make sure all that stuff is there, and then hire out the people that are pros and that could be your support, like be a part of your team, right? And so the benefits of using a home inspector is that's one of it. Someone on your team that's going to look out for you and say, hey, this is a full report of what I found in this house. with codes and like, you know, at the end of the day, someone's going to be living in this home, and it's your responsibility to have a safe home for your tenant. This allows you to have a safe home because they're going to look and see if the wiring is great, or if the plumbing is, or if there's any issues with plumbing, or if the foundation's off, or if the AC is busted, or whatever it is, you know? So the safety factor is number one. Like, that's super important, right? Another thing to factor in is negotiating tools. When you're purchasing a house, you say, okay, I'll buy it for X amount of dollars, right? But I want my inspection period to be there so I can have my inspector check things out and blah, blah, blah. They're going to note a few things, right? Oh, the roof looks really old and it's going to be replaced. It has to be replaced in a few years. Or the AC is like 30 years old and you're definitely going to have to replace that. So when you're able to have a professional come and give you this report and say, this is a list of things that's going to happen, you could use that as a tool to lower the price, right? You could say, in the next 2 to 3 years, I'm going to have to spend $80,000 or whatever the number is to make sure this house is still up and running. And so let's kind of meet halfway, right? So it's a negotiation tool, the safety aspect of it. And it's just, I don't know, like there's something good about having another set of eyes. I don't know about, like, Stitch, what are your thoughts on that? Like,
yeah, no, I agree. I think some of that, what you said is true, but I think it's also getting a mindset, like understanding, you know, yeah, you're about to buy a house. But again, like I tell people that real estate, it's almost a you know, home run usually when it comes to investment, right? Long term, you're always going to win, right? But I also say it's a calculated risk, right? So as long as the numbers work, whenever you're talking about running it for rental and all that stuff, but then also if you know what are the issues that you're getting into with this house, like if there's a foundation issue and you got the price low enough and you know you can build that into, you know, the repair piece of it, then that works the numbers, right? So at the end of the day, I think knowing the bigger picture of what you're getting into is what the inspection piece of it for me. I'd want to know, like I'd want to know if there was a leak, you know, in the roof when I'm buying the house, because the seller's not going to tell it to you, you know. And there is some part of what they'll kind of, you know, upfront and say to you, but again, an inspector is a third party eye, like you said. That's not in the transaction, that's coming in, that's neutral, that's going to have a fresh set of eyes that's looking at things that they are used to seeing.
Right. And so I guess to piggyback on what you're saying, in a hot market like this, when I'm saying negotiations, it's probably not going to work in your favor because people are going to buy things no matter what, right? But like you said, it's good to know. It's good to know that, like, oh, hey, in the next couple of years, my inspector said that the AC is going to be shot. So I need to make sure I budget for that, right? And so even for your own planning purposes, you need to know, like, what's the future? What does it have to hold for you, right? And so so you can start budgeting for the AC. You can start budgeting for a new roof. You could, you know, plan for those things. And really, like you said, everything's about calculated risk. You are taking a risk, but the more you could know walking into it, the better it is for you, you know? And so I mentioned before that I've done it with a home inspector and I've done it without a home inspector. So with this next question I'm going to pose to you, I have my own thoughts on it, but what are your thoughts about, should you even get a home inspector? Like, is it even, like, what are the instances where it might be worth it or it's not worth it?
For me, I highly if you're a brand new investor, I highly recommend an inspector. It's a learning process. I think you can and go in with the inspector. I think you can learn a lot by going in with the inspector and doing the walkthrough, because they'll show you things that you're not used to. You know, if they'll show you what the codes are for, you know, the current day when you're purchasing and versus when the house was built. You know, those kind of things are learning experiences, which I've been on multiple of those inspections. And honestly, you get to a point where, you know, once you're so comfortable, you identify these when you're doing the walkthrough yourself. You don't even need an inspector eventually, but I highly recommend an inspector, especially if you're a new investor. And then as you build experience, like anything else, on the job training, you know, you're going to know if you're going to need it or not. Of course, if it's a brand new home, you know, maybe just built 1 or 2 years from now, you may not need a home inspector. A lot of that stuff is probably already new, but I would say 9 times out of 10, I say definitely have a home inspector, just so you know what you're getting yourself into. And then again, a lot of people don't realize the other point with home inspection is whenever you get into a contract with a house, they have what's called an option period built into the contract. So you can actually buy a 7 to 10 day period for like couple $100, depending on what the selling agent's putting out there. But you basically have a 7 to 10 days from when you get in contract with the house or the seller to buy a house to actually get an inspector And if there's something major that doesn't seem right with you, or something that you can't swallow as far as cost goes to fix, or you can't come to negotiate, you can get out of that contract. You don't have to buy that home. So it's a bargaining chip for you to, again, that calculated risk, so you can save yourself, long term. If you think it's something that long term you can't, swallow that pill as far as cost goes, you find that within that 7 to 10 day option period, and then boom, you can get out of the contract or continue to stick with it and negotiate whatever issues, again, if you can negotiate those deals into closing the house.
Right, right. No, I mean, that makes perfect sense. And for the most part, I do 100 agree, because like if you're walking into a house, like you want that person on your team, it costs a few $100 to get it done. So it's not like chump change to just be like, oh yeah, it's only $10. Like, let's just get the inspector. Like it's like 300 to 500, I think. I forgot what it was, but
Yeah.
So it's something to consider as far as like your cost, right? But it's a small fraction when you're walking into a big investment, right? Like just to have that, like I said, second set of eyes to be able to like look over things and kind of give you that comfort of like, hey, this is a solid house, or hey, these are things to look for. So the case that I did not use a home inspector was Norford project. That house, we walked into it knowing like we're changing all the plumbing, we're changing, like everything's exposed, all the walls are, you can see through the entire house, right? And so in that scenario, just like you said, like when you're buying a brand new house, you probably don't need it. You can probably trust the builder did a good job and potentially go under warranty, right?
Yeah.
But outside of that, looking at this house that's gutted basically, and you know that you're going to dump a bunch of money into it. In my mind at that moment, I was like, let me save that $500 or $300 or whatever it is, because I'm fixing everything anyway. Like it's all going to get touched. And so really, but those are probably the only two times I would not use a home inspector.
Yep. And I'm telling you, I've learned a lot from these home inspections. The houses that I went to go check, they'll tell you things to look for. There was a house that I found that had termites, and ways to kind of realize, or like, you do outside inspections of a house, and you'll see little dirt tunnels going up the the base of the foundation. That's one thing that actually one of my houses that I bought had termites, and I would have never known, right? But those experiences again teach you what to look for. Let's just say even if you don't get an inspector later on, as you build your portfolio and the things to look for, you'll automatically identify some of these things anyway, because those things you will draw your eye to it, right? Even roof issues, leaks. As soon as I walk to a house, I'm looking at the roof to see if there's any water stains, things like that, that could be possible risk, or hey, what happened there? I think an inspection is a good learning tool for newbies, and even long term. Again, there's a lot of things you can learn from it, but I highly recommend people use it, unless again it's the two situations we kind of mentioned.
No, I totally agree, and kind of like I felt like you brought it home with that, like. As time progresses and the more you do this with an inspector, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to get to a point where it's like, oh, I could kind of do my general inspection and feel comfortable, right? And I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but there is also this mindset element of like, let the pros do what they need to do. Like, I don't, like at this point now, I mean, when I first started, I was trying to do everything myself, and that's fine. But there's certain things that you need to let the professional do the electrical. You need that plumber to do the plumbing work. And so the home inspector is the same concept, right? It's the same idea of like, I need that professional eye to look at everything, because they do a very thorough job. And the report that's furnished to you, it has pictures and written notes, and it just they kind of just verify like, hey, this is what I saw, and these are the things that you need to be mindful of, right? And so again, like going back to the whole mindset of the matter, you're an investor, like of course you want to have a knowledge on everything, but you shouldn't put yourself in a position where it's like, I'm going to put that weight on my shoulders, because it slows you down in the long run. It slows you down when you're trying to grow faster. And the whole thing is about scalability, right? And if you're putting on all these hats, if you're the home inspector, it's harder to be an investor and a home inspector, right? It'll help to have that knowledge, but let the pro do what they need to do.
Agreed. And that's a great way to kind of wrap this session up. It's, that report is key as well. They'll take pictures of everything, highlight all the key areas that are areas of concern. You can even share that with your seller as proof, as this is an issue, or this is something you want to, address, with a monetary, reduction of price on home, or or however you want to handle it, but you actually have a proof of everything that's in that house, and it's good documentation long term. As far as you keep that as part of the portfolio. If you ever need to refer to, hey, what kind of water heater I have, what kind of I've done that as well. I've actually looked at the inspection report to see, hey, do I have a gas water heater there? Do I have what kind of furnace do I have there? There's people that ask you that. You don't know once you get to a certain point. So those are good pieces of documentation to store as well. I don't know, Saj, is there anything else that you want to bring up, or I feel like we kind of covered we've covered this inspection thing pretty good, and we're going to have subsequent episodes where we'll show, like, I think high level things that are good to kind of maintain for a house, and key areas to look at for a house. That's very important as well, as a kind of a piggyback of this episode. But inspection reports, good. Do it. And
For sure. No, I don't think I have anything more to add to it. I think we covered it. But I will say this: if you think we missed something, or if you have something to add, please comment wherever you're watching this. I mean, we post on YouTube, we post on Facebook. Please let us know your thoughts, because we really want to know. Like, we don't want to pose as like we know everything. We're just taking whatever knowledge we've like accumulated over time, and we just want to share. And we want to have a platform where we could all talk and kind of learn from each other, right? And so, what are your thoughts on home inspection? Have you done it before? Have you avoided it? And, what stories have you experienced? It'd be great for us to know.
Definitely. Yeah, with that said, Saj, again, I think another good episode. Hopefully you guys have some feedback on experiences. It's all good. But thanks for tuning in. And as always, follow us, subscribe to us. Let us know what works, what you like. If there's anything we should change. We love the feedback.
Yeah, we love it, man. We love it. So, yeah, please make it a two-way street. Don't let it be us just talking to y'all, but let us know what you think.
Agreed. And with that, thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next time, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Guts and Grind with Siju and Sajin. Be sure to tune in next time.